The Bible says no one has ever seen God. The Bible also says several people have seen God face to face. It's a contradiction. So how do we make it go away? Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion. To begin, this contradiction exists because the conceptualization of God changed between the composition of the passages in the Hebrew Bible, where people see God face to face, and the composition of John 1:18, which says no one has ever seen God. Why did it change? A few different reasons, but primarily because of Greek philosophy, and specifically Platonic streams of tradition within Greek philosophy, which held that deity is spirit as opposed to flesh, is invisible as opposed to visible, and is immaterial as opposed to material. So in Genesis 32:30 and verse 31, if you're looking in the Hebrew, Jacob names this place Peniel, which means face of God. Why? Ki raiti Elohim panim el panim, because I have seen God face to face. Anciently, you could see God because they were conceptualized as material, corporeal, and anthropomorphic. In other words, they had a body, they had parts, they had passions, they looked like a male human being. However, Jacob goes on, and my life was preserved. There is surprise that he was able to see God face to face, and that's because of passages like Exodus 33:20, where God explains to Moses that you will see my back, but you will not see my face, because no one can see me and live. The idea was not that God is invisible. The idea was that God radiates so much glory, or in Akkadian, melamu, that it's deadly, it overpowers you. This is why people were scared of Moses' shining face when he came down from Sinai. But in Exodus 24:10, the 70 elders of Israel go up Sinai and they see the God of Israel. Now, when we get to certain streams of tradition within Greco-Roman period Judaism, we have the influence of Platonic philosophy, which changes the way they conceptualize God. And we already see this change in some parts of the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. So Exodus 24:10, they saw the God of Israel. In the Greek translation, they saw the place where the God of Israel stood. We're already distancing ourselves from this notion that God is corporeal and visible. And within Judaism, that wouldn't be entirely gotten rid of until like Maimonides in the medieval period. Within Christianity, it happened much earlier by Augustine. We've already abandoned the notion of a corporeal, visible deity. So when we get to John 1:18, John, who is a very philosophically minded Christian, is adopting that Platonic framework that no one can see God. So then these traditions are circulated independently, but they get brought together by the end of the 4th century CE. We now have the Bible, and these texts are juxtaposed, and we have to try to reconcile and harmonize them because we think of the Bible, the scriptures, as coming from a single inspired source. So how do we do this? We got to negotiate with the Bible, which means we've got to prioritize the passages that agree with us, and then we've got to subordinate and reinterpret and renegotiate the passages that don't. So Christianity is built on a foundation of Greek philosophy, and particularly Platonic streams of tradition within Greek philosophy, particularly when we're talking about conceptualizations of deity and things like the Trinity. And so that obviously takes priority. So John 1:18 is the governing verse. Everything else has to be subordinated to it, reinterpreted, renegotiated. So even though the passage in Genesis 32 has Jacob explicitly saying, I have seen God face to face, it's got to be somebody else. We've got to negotiate that away. And so we look at other passages where we have the identity of God and the identity of the angel kind of merged, where God's presence is obscured. Now, originally, these passages narrated God themselves interacting directly with humans, and an editor came through later and wrote in malach, angel. So, for instance, Moses in Exodus 3 sees an angel of God who then says, I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. However, the word angel isn't there in the Vulgate at all. The word angel is not there in Josephus's account of this story. It's because it was added later to obscure God's presence. And so, well, it says it over there. Let's import that into Jacob's wrestle with God, and let's say that was an angel, and that actually was already going on in the textual interpolation of Hosea, where we have Jacob fighting with an angel. That word angel was written in later as well, and the word for God, El, was changed to a preposition that indicates the direct object of the verb. And so basically we're renegotiating the texts that say what we don't like so that they agree with what we do like. And so when people say, well, no one has seen God, well, what about this verse that says, I have seen God face to face? Wasn't really God. We've negotiated it away. All the Bible is negotiable. What governs how we negotiate with the Bible is what our tradition determines is important to us. And that's usually going to be guided by structuring power, values, and boundaries in order to serve the interests of our identity politics. We subordinate the Bible to our identity politics. Our traditions are the real authority. The Bible is just the proof text.